We are back, baby. Welcome back to Watchtime 2021. New year, new us.
Kind of the same us, though, and the same podcast, but yeah.
But we're excited. We're excited to be back. We left you guys on a hook at the end of last year. I think we left you second last week of the year, and we were like, one more episode, last episode of 2020, and we'll be back.
And it didn't happen.
We were never back.
Because A, we partied too hard at the Christmas party. That's definitely not exactly what happened. But also then there was another COVID outbreak in Sydney, and then that threw everything off. But we got it back down to 0 cases again, so we've quashed it again. Sydney number one.
Elliot finally convinced me.
I finally sold the boat party, and people loved it. And
he put in months of groundwork to make it happen. Pulled it off, and then just made sure that I had a full glass of champagne in my hand the entire day.
And it was definitely worth it.
It was 100% worth it. It was actually such a fun time. And for us, obviously, we work with so many creators all the time. You're a creator. It can be a bit of a solo job a lot of the time on the day-to-day. And so the opportunity to just have everyone in the same place for a day and a night.
Socializing.
A big day.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun.
But then, like, the news, I feel like the gaming-related news from basically when we stopped making the podcast to now has been pretty neutral.
We took a break. So the whole office took 2 weeks off over summer, which for me was kind of an interesting experience because I feel like in some ways, I don't know if you feel this as well, you get to the end of the year and in so many ways I was like, wow, I'm so excited to take 3 weeks off. Like I really wanted to take 3 weeks off, fully relax, enjoy it. And then I literally get 2 days in and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many hours in the day. My mind just like runs. I'm really, really bad. I think it actually
I'm bad at not having things
off.
To do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like I get anxious.
I'm also a YouTuber who can't take breaks in December because that's when you get paid the most. But...
Right. But I literally remember Elliot and I like went to get a massage one time in separate rooms, but at the same time. And Elliot came out at the end of it and he was just like, that was literally the worst experience of my life.
Oh, that was like 6 years ago, right?
He was like, I lay there and had to be left alone with my thoughts for an hour. It was awful.
I go inside. I need like proactive things to do, or at least a Twitter feed to browse.
Literally, like I actually find it really difficult being on social media and trying to take a significant break because I go on Twitter and Twitter is just... I love it, but it's also so toxic and you're just filled with people doing all the most amazing things and it makes you feel inadequate. And I'm like 3 days into my holiday and I'm like, I do not deserve to take any time off.
I was going to say, because you also didn't take a holiday because 3 days into the holiday, you were messaging everyone about brand deals and other stuff that you were trying to organize. So it didn't really happen that way.
It didn't really happen, but I don't know. I feel like...
And then you did an AFR article.
Oh, yeah.
The Financial Review article. And I got you a surprise for episode 1, which is a framed version of the article, which if you're listening to the digital if you're listening to the audio version, you can't hear anything.
Elliot's just pulled out a frame of the front cover that I was on.
Yeah, because it was on the front page.
Oh, Elliot, that's actually so sweet.
Yeah, it's
Thank
pretty
you.
cool. Also, and this isn't me trying
Elliot's also on the front page, for those of you that can't see
Oh,
it.
there's a small,
it's a small photo. Mine.
I don't look as good on a front page. Side note, framing is bloody expensive.
Dude, framing is so expensive.
Framing is bloody... I was expecting a quote of like, yeah, I chuck that in a little frame for like 20 bucks. Yeah. And then I got the quote and I was like, oh...
Oh, dude, well, thank you. Obviously, it was me in the photo, but for me, it's more about like the whole team. And I think it's just super, super cool to see mainstream recognition of stuff that's happening in gaming because obviously like gaming in the whole world is kind of a misunderstood industry, I think. And like when you're in it or you're part of the culture or you understand it, it's obviously so exciting and you understand how massive it is and influential it is and exciting and it's growing fast. But for a lot of people and a lot of traditional industries, it doesn't really have that recognition yet. And so for me, anytime I see like gaming or creators or people doing cool stuff getting mainstream recognition, it's just so exciting because I feel like it's just an indicator of the direction that everything's moving in.
That was the big news thing that happened in gaming, I guess, over for us over the past month or two. But then there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, the internet blew up last week.
The internet blew up last week. You guys already know what we're talking about. You already know. It would say,
And
some
this-
would say it blew up and
some
everyone's
would
going
say,
to the moon.
And you know what? Some would say that this really toes the line between what we would normally cover on Watch Time. But I would say that the word gaming is in game, at least. And
This is
also, it was so
internet
social
culture
media.
at its
Yeah,
best.
true. You're right. It's also
This is
so social media
100%.
driven. Which is the price of GameStop getting completely blown up, sent to ridiculous numbers, and now I would say it's probably easing off a bit. But it was the craziest 1 or 2 weeks of a journey.
So let's just backtrack on this story for a second. Last Monday was the first time that I heard about this. Elliot sent me an article that was from some like underground gaming news website. It was niche, okay? It was super niche. And it was like, oh, look at this little group of like Redditors kind of gaming the stock price on GameStop. GameStop obviously being basically like the Blockbuster of games. It is a physical, like a physical franchise of stores to walk into and buy like physical copies of games, which like obviously everyone here knows is not something that is a 2021 thing to do.
So funny because I was listening to the Daily podcast this morning, and
Yeah.
literally they described it. When they were describing it, they were like, and basically it's this shop which, can you believe it? You used to be able to walk into and purchase physical copies of game, which is like, I'm like, obviously you and I know you can still do that, but it's very telling.
For everyone, like they still exist, obviously. These stores still exist. They're generally in like malls and shopping centers. They're in Australia as well. Do you know what? It's so funny because actually over the holidays, I had to go into a GameStop. I was with Ilsa, our sister, who's also a YouTuber. We went into GameStop because the 2 other stores that we went to didn't have them in stock. GameStop had it in stock and it was selling it for, I'm not kidding, twice the retail price of the other stores. And
Don't
I
make those
actually
margins, baby.
had a really poor shopping experience. I was like, do you guys like price match or anything? Like, just
Right.
FYI.
Whatever you do, don't say anything bad about GameStop on the internet right now. You will be destroyed. Anyway, she had a great shopping experience at GameStop.
It was amazing.
She loved it. But to get us back on track with the story, I mean, you probably don't even need to hear it at this stage. Long story short, a bunch of Redditors realized that Wall Street had basically made a bunch of bets against GameStop saying that the price would go down. They basically said, yo, f- those guys, and they made the price go up.
Yeah.
And I think actually a year, so I didn't realize a year ago, GameStop was only trading for like $4 or $5, I'm pretty sure. And then a month ago, it was trading for about $20. And then in the space of a week, they shot it from $20 all the way up to, I think it ended at $460.20, I want to say.
And that increase is really not an indicator that the value of the company has increased that much. It was really like a David and Goliath story of like a stick it to the man. We can sort of the power of the people do this. And it basically started a little micro trend last week of people getting on what they're calling like basically meme stocks. So exactly companies like GameStop or Nokia was another example of one.
Yeah, and AMC. I feel like none of those other ones really took off quite as much. And then you're seeing other stuff this week that's like, oh, the silver squeeze and all these new ones that are happening. And I think Dogecoin as well went from like 5 cents to 50 cents.
A couple of our friends got on that one.
It's kind of scary when you start seeing like things do it because you're like, oh my God, if like nothing makes sense anymore, then like what does?
Yeah.
But I mean, this one I think is slightly more innocent and I think hopefully slightly more long term. But I think the really interesting thing is going to be the outcome.
What's the outcome going to be? Predict the future.
Okay. The problem is when you say what I'm about to say, you get a lot of backlash. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money at the end of the day.
But who's it going to be? Is it going to be the Redditors at home or is it going to be Wall Street?
Wall Street's already lost a lot of money. Like
Okay.
they're like that. They've lost billions in shorts on GameStop in the last week. But their losses are now kind of like, okay, they've lost the money. And sure, people keep being like, oh no, there's like a couple of short positions left. But no, vast majority of the money that has already been lost is Wall Street's. The vast amount of money that is now going to be lost is the people that bought the stock. Because
Right.
don't get me wrong, I would say the people who have bought into it are 80-20. I reckon 80% of the people are like, want a quick buck. And I think 20% of the people who bought it are like, nah, this is just like a stick it to the man. We're just going to hold it. And this is like a big double middle finger.
Hold the line.
This is like a double middle finger to Wall Street being like, we can do whatever we want with the stock price.
Yeah.
And the thing is, 20% of people, when they lose a bunch of money, they're probably not going to care, right? So much respect to him that he's done this. But the guy who started the whole trend and bought in with that 50 grand of stock initially, that then peaked at being worth about $50 million.
What's his Reddit name again?
Deep fucking value. And he's still holding. Like, the price is now clearly on a decline.
Dude.
Very, very unlikely to go back up to where it was.
Elliot and I were saying the guy that started this, Deep Effing Value or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
it's like he's really got two options. He's either got to be, he's the leader of this army.
Yeah.
Like, he is the leader.
If he bails out, it
he's
all
the
goes.
man. He's the one that really has to, like, you know,
But also,
keep the people in line. But also, I got to say, if I was him and I had made $50 million off this thing in like a week, you can bet your ass I'm deleting my Reddit account. I'm cashing out. And you'll never see me again.
like, I feel like
You'll never see me again.
And you know what? I think
I'm
there's
gone.
so many people on the internet who would be like, nah, man, I wouldn't do that. I'd stick in it for the meme.
Mm-hmm.
But those people have not had $50 million placed in front of them.
No.
And like the trade-off between that and a meme. And I think there's a very small subset that might stick with it. But man, he's posting daily updates on Reddit. And I looked at his account today. Since his last post, which I think was only 12 hours ago, he had lost $15 million off the value of his portfolio.
It hurts.
But
It hurts.
he hasn't sold one share.
I'm so impressed.
If I was
I
him-
don't think my self-control could allow me to do that.
If I was him, I would maybe just like subtly shift off like 10 million.
Yeah.
You know, just be like, look, okay, I want to stick with the vast majority of it, but man, just let me put 10 mil on the bank, you know, let me be set up for life.
It really is the power of the internet, though.
Oh.
And it's unbelievable how, like, in a matter of 24 hours, my entire Twitter feed just transformed into everyone suddenly like a finance bro. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's into this, everyone's talking about it, and just the mainstream media getting behind it as well.
There is that saying, though, when your Uber driver starts talking about something, it's a bubble. And when my Uber driver started being like, have you heard of all this GameStop stuff going on? I was like, yep, okay, this is definitely about the peak the price is going to go. Like,
No hate to the Uber drivers.
No hate to the Uber drivers, no. But it's like, it's the same thing. It's like when your grandma starts talking about Bitcoin, it's probably a bubble. And that's what happened
Right.
in the first Bitcoin bubble. Anyway, to go back to that analogy I was saying, though, 80% of people are in it for the money. 20% of people are in it to stick it to Wall Street. Honestly, it could be more like 90-10 even.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, sure, the 10, 20%, they're not going to care as much when they lose because they're like, nah, that was a great journey we went on. But there's 80% of people in there who are going to lose a bit. And I think the thing that scared me was, and I didn't even think about this, it was someone was talking about this morning, and it was like people aren't only just, you know, putting in a couple $100 into the stock. A lot of the time, people have now gone out there. They've taken out loans, like they've put off their mortgage. They've done crazy stuff to buy into it. And at the end, it's a simple fact of the way that stock trading works, which is that everyone can't just boost the price up to $400 and now just suddenly just exit at $400.
No.
That physically cannot work because at the end of the day, people need to be buying those shares that people are selling for that
Totally.
amount. So inevitably, someone's going to be left holding this now $40 billion bag, which is the value of that the company's ballooned to,
Yeah.
up from like 1 billion that it was before, a few hundred million it was.
Yeah.
So there is suddenly 39 billion there that didn't exist before. Someone, and don't get me wrong, they messed up the shorts. They messed up the shorts that Wall Street had. That's done. But there's still 39 billion there.
And when we talk about getting the bag,
Ugh.
that's not the bag you want. This isn't
No,
the
you
bag
don't. You don't want that bag.
This
You don't
is
want to
not
be.
that bag.
You don't want to be left holding that bag.
No,
You want to
no.
get the bag before you're left holding that bag.
I mean, I think you also like can't look at this in a vacuum. Like, you have to kind of look at it in the wider circumstance of where the world is right now. And obviously, like, we're still in the depths of COVID, definitely in the US. So many people have lost their jobs. So many more people have time at home. A lot more people have time on their hands. People are cash strapped. And I think people are looking at the internet and seeing people be able to create these opportunities for themselves. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to be doing their own thing, and no one wants to be working for the man. And I think that's why you see these little like flurries of activity, whether it be this or it be like the Bitcoin sort of trend that was happening literally 2 weeks ago. And people get this sense of FOMO. They get this feeling of like, I don't want to miss the bus. And I bought $500 worth of Bitcoin. And so I'll see you on the moon.
But I hate being the boring guy, right? Dude. Like I want to be the guy who's like diamond hands to the moon, never sell, diamond hands. But then I'm like, but man, like everyone who's saying diamond hands never sell, sure, they're holding. There are a lot of people who are also selling and driving the price down. Yeah. And like inevitably.
And they're not the ones that are talking about it on Reddit.
No. Oh my God. See what it was. There is like a bit of a history of like stocks that have gotten boosted before and hedge funds lose out in the short term. But then when it gets to this point where they've actually lost all their short positions, this is where they start coming in and actually profiting off it going down. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen.
It's a crazy world out there. It is bloody crazy.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
But for our first episode back, guys, we thought it was fitting to start 2021 with some of our own predictions for the year ahead, both from Elliot's perspective as a creator, from my perspective as more like on the business side of the industry, and really think about like what happened in 2020 and what are we going to see more of in 2021. Should we place some bets on this episode?
I'll place a bet, but I feel like it's hard to place concrete bets because it like what can happen. There's like a million paths that
I'm rolling
that
my
things
eye,
could
guys.
go down.
Classic Elliot on Watchtime, am I right? Never wants to take a bet.
I'll take a bet. So what I'm going to say is that I think we're really going to go into a year of variety gaming. I don't think that I don't think there's going to be a giant new emergent title that's going to take over the world like Minecraft did or like Fortnite did. I think it's really going to start going into variety. I think there'll still be some great titles that'll come out this year because I think there's probably been so much in development that got slightly held back by the pandemic. But I think they're mostly going to be like once off, 2-3 weeks to a month kind of like lifetime, and then they'll taper off again. But I think that, I actually got to delve really deeply into this topic with some of Mr. Beast's team last week, which was talking about how creators are going to fit into that. Because obviously a lot of the time, if you're a YouTuber, you'll kind of build your channel around a certain title, and then that becomes the kind of audience that you're really building on. So, like me and Lockie with Fortnite. Like we make Fortnite videos. We are Fortnite YouTubers. 98% of people who watch our videos are interested in Fortnite.
And because I know we have so many people that watch the podcast or listen to the podcast and want to be creators, that's in the past been such a strength for creators, is being able to carve out a little niche for yourself, being able to get a reputation at doing really good content on one specific thing and having something that people can come back to every day. In the past, that's absolutely been a strategy for all of those big Fortnite channels. If you look back into their blow up period, they were not taking a risk doing anything else except sticking when they were on a good thing.
Yes, when you're building a channel like that, the audience's interest in your content is, sure, it's definitely still about your personality and the unique flair you bring to the game, but it is also very centralized on that game. Like they are interested in Fortnite, they're interested in seeing the dumb things you can do in Fortnite, they're interested in seeing high kill gameplay in Fortnite.
They want to see the new updates.
Exactly. It's all very much as it's about you, it's also very much about the game.
For sure.
But when you go into these variety phases, you really don't have that structure anymore. And sure, there are little titles that'll pop up that people get interested in the short term. But I think really what you're going to see start becoming bigger and bigger, and I think you already have seen if you look at the trend of the two big games that have really blown up in content over the past 6 months. And they have been Fall Guys and Among Us.
Yes.
And what those two games, especially Among Us, but also Fall Guys had in common is it was no longer as much about the game that you're playing, and it's much more about the interactions between creators playing it. So Fortnite content by and large is solo. We kind of like play the game. Maybe we're playing with someone occasionally, but it's very much about solo commentary and just showing the gameplay.
Yeah.
But I think when you go into these variety phases, it's going to be so much more about kind of the interactions between different YouTubers. So it's the game almost
Back
becomes
on the group grind.
yeah, the game almost becomes irrelevant. The game's just kind of like the platform that you're building the content on.
Totally.
But it's not the content itself. So
it's the sandbox you're playing in.
yeah, literally. So everything from like Among Us servers where it's all about that kind of like everyone accusing each other and shouting each other, Fall Guys, so people are grabbing each other and laughing at them when they fail, to, you know, Minecraft group servers, to all that kind of thing, where it is going to become, I think, so much more about creators interacting with other creators, which ultimately is great because it's effectively infinite content, because the number of ways people can interact with each other is limitless. But that's how a lot of YouTube gaming started. It was like a Markiplier playing Gary's Mod Prop Hunt and the terrorist town. I forget what it was called.
Do you think in some ways that kind of content is also more challenging though, because you haven't got the crutch of a game? You can't just rely on a new update to automatically give you a new video. It's like if Fortnite's dropping a new update on a Tuesday, you know what you're dropping on a Wednesday for a video. Whereas this, it's like, it relies on personality. It relies a lot more on the creativity of people.
Yes and no. I actually think though, especially like, sure, when a game first comes out like Fortnite, there's infinite video ideas, and it's so nice to be able to be like, don't need to rely on anyone. I can literally sit down, there's 50 billion things I can do, and I can just make a video on one of these lists of 40 ideas.
Yeah.
When you're at a stage of Fortnite like it is right now though, you're like, oh my God, every video has been done. Every video. There is almost, I reckon, maybe once a month, a single Fortnite YouTuber out of the thousands will come up with a video idea where people are like, oh, actually, that's cool.
Yeah.
It used to be every day. So, but the thing is, when you go into...
Because people have just exhausted everything that's been done.
Yeah, so it's really hard now when you're a Fortnite YouTuber, you're sitting there like, what do I record? What do I record? I don't have any ideas. And when you're solo, you very much need an idea that you're focusing your content on.
Yeah.
But when you're doing group stuff, you don't need ideas because you don't really need to theme your recordings as much. The content, don't get me wrong, you totally can, and it can still be really, really valuable to do that. And I think we've talked before about how people do that in games like Among Us with, you know, different mods and themes, and you can only say one word. But a lot of the time, the actual meat of the content really just generates itself.
True.
Because you don't have to think about how you're going to fill up the video and what scenes you're going to have, because you just play the game, and inevitably through that banter that you're going to have with other people, funny stuff just happens.
Yeah.
So there is the harder part in the sense that you do need to like coordinate a group and find a good group that is good at being entertaining, but also so much of that content is just organic. Like, you don't have to overthink what you're going to do that day. It's like, I know with these guys, when I jump into a Discord call and we play whatever we play, funny stuff's going to happen. Everyone knows how to make something entertaining.
Interesting. I like that as a prediction. So do you feel like you're going to see like groups come back more?
Very much. I feel like you already are seeing that as well.
I mean, that Minecraft gang.
SMP,
Crazy.
the kind of the groups that have built up around Among Us. People don't seem to be as like rigid in groups these days as they used to be. Very much used to be like, oh no, that is the group. They always play together. That's 4 people. And if a 5th person came in, it would be like a interesting thing.
Yeah.
People are definitely, they have people they're comfortable with, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be a bit more casual.
Okay, cool. All right, you want to hear my first prediction?
Hit me.
My first prediction is this year we are going to see a lot more creators coming out with their own brands or investing themselves into other brands than we ever have before. I think in the past, a big trend of the way that you've seen influencers and creators develop is that they start working with big brands. And a couple years ago, I feel like Ninja really like evangelized that space or took it to a new level in terms of the kind of brands he was working with. He had his Red Bull partnership. He had his Uber Eats partnership. You know, creators that have been signing to big esports orgs, that sort of thing. And the kind of brand that you're partnering with has really been like a stamp of where you kind of stand in the standards of creators. It's like, oh, if you're working with like a McDonald's or a Coke or whatever, like a AAA brand, that really is a status symbol of the kind of creator that you're becoming. But I really think this year we're going to see the top creators not necessarily working with top brands, but literally coming out with their own brands. And I think we've started to see a little bit of that, like Mr. Beast coming out with Beast Burger at the end of last year, which is super, super cool. These creators are getting to a point where they don't need the sponsorship of other big brands. Their brands are as big as those in terms of reach themselves. So now it's about, instead of just being paid like cash for comment, like I'm going to promote this brand, it'll still happen all the time. I think it'll be like, no, how can I, instead of just taking like part of the marketing budget for that brand, how can I actually own it?
I mean, I do think there'll be, like you said, top creators doing that. I think the bread and butter and like the real meat for most creators in terms of that additional monetization, it is hard to get away from sponsored stuff.
Absolutely.
When your voice is like smaller. But obviously for people like not everyone can do a Mr. Beast and be like, hey, I am going to suddenly partner with a whole bunch of restaurants and launch a national burger chain.
Yeah.
Like if I do that, I might, sell a couple, but it's not going to be like a phenomenon like it was with him. But at the same time, you're right. For those creators that can do that,
I think that's what they're going to be doing. I think you'll see it with Doughbrick as well. Like, I'm pretty sure Doughbrick's coming out with his pizza company soon. He's coming out with his Doughbrick.
Oh, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, is it like physical storefront or is it?
I believe it's going to be a physical storefront. Yeah, in LA.
Wild.
And then he's obviously coming out with his Dispo app as well. And I think, and he did his perfume last year. Mr. Beast did his finger on the app thing. That's really the trend of where things are going to go.
Yeah.
With that, and obviously I'm thinking about this all the time because I work in digital talent management, the good management companies are really going to have to be quickly adapting what they're able to do for the creators that they represent. What used to be the skills of a great manager, which might be, having a really deep, wide pool of relationships, being able to negotiate deals in a, really confident, strong manner, being able to provide those access to opportunities and introduction to relationships for their talent, I think that is going to transform as well. And as the top creators start to want to do their own brands, management are going to have to skill up very quickly in terms of their understanding around IP and creating companies and investing in other companies, and almost, I think, in many ways, becoming little venture capital firms in and of themselves, because a lot of startup companies recognize the importance and the impact that having an influencer attached to them can have, and how it's just an automatic little marketing and distribution channel. But a lot of them can't afford it. So if you can get an influencer actually invested and involved and long-term interested in how that company is going to perform, then that's a huge strength. But obviously management has a huge role to play there in terms of vetting those opportunities, making sure they're negotiated right and getting the good outcome for the talent. And I think that's where we're going to see a massive trend in management as well.
And starting so many of these companies that people start, man, it's a lot of work. Like I was thinking,
crazy.
But it's like, it's actually beyond comprehension. Up until the last year or two, almost anything that you needed a manager to do could effectively be done by one person. It'll be like, hey, need a brand deal. That brand manager coordinates with the brand, gets the offer through, counters, gets the details, sends to the talent, follows it through, it's done. But I was thinking about the logistics of something like the Mr. Beast burger chain thing. And that's not even his own product per se. That's literally just him.
Ghost Kitchen.
Yeah, it's Ghost Kitchen. It's him just white labeling the products of a bunch of restaurants around the country. But the workload required to go to that many restaurants, quality control what they're going to do, send them all the like packaging, make sure that the supplies there, like coordinate with Uber to have all these. It's just insane. Like it's actually completely wild how much work that would have taken to coordinate with the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of restaurants they did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you think about the size of teams that used to be kind of behind like a YouTuber or a group of YouTubers. Could have just been one person. These days it's like you have brand specialists, you have merch specialists, you have so much going on because like you say, more and more the really, really big creators, and it didn't used to be this way, but now you have these biggest creators on the platform that are people like Mr. Beast, where if they speak, the internet as a whole listens. Like if Beast were to tweet, buy Dogecoin, price will probably double.
100%.
Literally billions of dollars of impact.
Yeah.
I mean, like we were even talking this morning, and this obviously isn't an influencer as much, but it's the same concept. How the Daily Podcast put out their podcast basically being like, hey, like GME, like it's great, but at the end of the day, the price will go down and someone is going to be left stranded. And it wiped $20 billion off the stock market in the like couple of hours that followed that podcast coming out.
It's insane.
Like if you can release a podcast and change like $20 billion on an
Yeah.
individual stock, that is fucking insane.
Yeah.
That is completely wild. The reverse is like when Elon tweets, oh yeah, like GME to the moon, bang, goes up like another $200.
I really think that's a prediction in and of itself. Is I think, people used to think influencers are kids on YouTube promoting makeup products or games. I think there's going to be a whole new trend of, I don't even know whether to call them influencers or like thought leaders, but basically people that have massive online social followings that truly are able to manipulate the market. And I think of people like Elon and like a whole bunch of people on Twitter, I think, that truly have dedicated audiences. Right. Dave Portnoy, like I think he is an influencer, undoubtedly. He absolutely has the ability to manipulate the market.
Which I really wonder, are they going to have to put something in to regulate that? Because you think about that, like, you play that out logically. And sure, the vast majority of influencers do not do this and they wouldn't even think about doing this. But also, if you recognize that you're one of those people who has that impact, you literally could be, and once I think Mr. Beast is actually the furthest person that would do this, he could literally buy a certain stock in the morning, an hour later tweet, wow, this stock looks pretty damn sick.
You don't think Dave Portnoy is doing that? He's doing that with Penn stocks all the time.
You reckon he does that?
I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I guess maybe I give people too much goodwill. But there's never been individuals before that have that power. And there are laws in place that say, like, a bunch of hedge funds can't get together and mutually agree to, like, pump the price and then dump it right after. I don't think laws have ever had to consider where we are today.
The power of an individual
where
person.
An individual can effectively, manipulate markets that effectively.
Okay. Is that our sum up of our predictions for 2021?
So far.
More to come. What we are doing to finish off our first episode of Watchtime, and we're going to be doing this every week, is we're going to finish with a couple questions that have been submitted via y'all.
Which you can do on Instagram. All right, first question Grace is going to answer, and it is, what would you change about the gaming industry in Australia?
Ooh, okay. What I would change about the gaming industry in Australia? I think the gaming industry in Australia has a lot of strengths from a creator perspective. I think we really punch above our weight in Australia. I think people, I don't know why that is. I think it's like people love the accent.
The accent, mate.
It's definitely not due to our great internet situation. But what I would change, I think, is the way that marketing budgets are distributed. This is something that I think sounds super boring, but might be interesting for those of you that care about more of the industry side of the market. This is something that I think inevitably will change because it has to. But basically, a lot of the work we do is obviously working with brands. A lot of the brands that we work with are now global brands. So say, for example, we're working with a fictitious brand that we're not working with. I'll call it Nike, for example. Nike wants to work with Elliot because he is an athlete and a gamer and a new audience for him.
Definitely an athlete.
Nike is obviously a global brand, but they will also have an Australian office. Sometimes because we're based in Australia, the Australian office will want to work with us, but then realize that most of Elliot's audience is actually in the US. But for the US, they say, look, he's based in Australia, so we can't work with him.
If you're an Australian agency, most of your performance metrics, that basically where the company says how well you did, is based on how the product performs in Australia.
Yes.
But the way that internationally they divvy up the budget, say that Nike spends $1 billion a year, they might give 500 million of that to America, 300 million to Europe, another blah, 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 and they give 10 million to Australia. So the Australian office, doesn't necessarily always have the money to kind of work with the really, really big giant creators, because even though their audience is largely in America that has that huge budget, they're only really looking at that tiny little 8% Australian audience. So
and they don't care about the bigger picture. It's a little frustrating, and I think it obviously doesn't make sense because the benefit for the brand is going to happen internationally regardless, and it's more like the Australian office just doesn't have the budget or interest to care about it really. So that's something that we deal with actually on an everyday basis.
I think that actually is slowly improving. Like, I remember a couple of years
Absolutely,
ago. Oh my God. Literally, when we first started Click, any Australian brand you'd talk to, it was like roadblock. And I think they're finally finding ways where, okay, the Australian agency, while they might not have the budget, they can refer it to the American one, and then they can do it. And they've now got things they can incorporate Australian creators' performance globally, and it's getting better. It's the problem with marketing is marketing has been done the same way for the last 50, 60 years. And the vast majority of it was literally like, oh, we're going to sign off on this TV ad and we're going to put $5 million behind it. It's going to appear on TV for the next 2 months. Working with creators is harder because they're less predictable sometimes. The outcome is less totally certain, but also the benefits, if you do something right with them, are absolutely massive. So I think companies are slowly kind of realizing that that's definitely got so many advantages to it, and they're trying to figure out the right way to work, but also it is a slow ship to turn.
Yeah.
And they'll get there.
Take a long time to turn.
I'm sure they'll get there eventually.
Okay. My question for you, Elliot, which was submitted, is what is Click Management going to be doing this year to stay fresh?
More new, exciting things. I feel like we've not that we've like totally nailed, not that we've like, you know, absolutely done everything we could ever do in the area of like, you know, managing YouTubers, which I think, you know, we've obviously done a really, really good job of up till now. But I think everyone's really, really excited to like build out more extra things that could be totally like nothing to do with managing YouTubers and doing brand deals, like just completely separate projects, whatever they might be, whether that's us making our own content or anything else. But then I think also finding more areas of that YouTube ecosystem to do what we were talking about before, which was finding ways to actually like work with YouTubers, like to basically get our channels, find things we can do to actually help them directly to build their own businesses and actually partner with them on it.
I can't tell you all the trade secrets
exactly.
right now.
I'm trying to navigate my way around.
Think about the predictions that we made for the industry, and our plans probably align a little bit with our predictions for the industry. So we've also partnered with Acast for this year, so you may hear a couple more ads on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for episode 1, Watch Time. We're excited to be back.
Thanks for watching the episode, guys. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.